Rheid has a wonderful introduction. I don't have it with me. However, he does. So please allow me to introduce Rheid. We'll introduce Rheid.
My introduction is really, hopefully, an explanation. I received a phone call yesterday morning from a member of my congregation of the church where I go to. He was panicked. He felt like he was in a bad situation. Don't time this as being my speech at this point. He asked if I would fill in for the person who was going to speak, that wasn't going to speak on tomorrow for the Christmas program. So, being the good Toastmaster and hearing Darren LaCroix in my head say, stage time, stage time, stage time, I said, sure. About 2 hours later, I went onto the website and saw that we didn't have a third speaker. So I thought, why not practice with you guys? So, the setting, I don't know what religious affiliations you are. In my congregation, it's a lay ministry, and so members of the congregation can be asked to speak during our services, and generally they are pretty much tied to the pulpit. You don't leave the pulpit because there's only one microphone and it doesn't move. So I will be trying my best to go through this. I do have notes because even at this point it is still a work in progress, and I would enjoy any of your feedback and comments associated with it. They don't clap in our congregation, so you don't need to clap at the end. I love this time of year. All of the hopes and aspirations, anticipations of gifts that might be given or might be received. It's just so cool. There's a sense of happiness and goodwill. I think that's because everyone is trying to make sure they're not on the naughty list, especially after Black Friday. But you know, for me, Christmas has always been about family and the traditions of our family. The smell of cinnamon rolls in the kitchen, the smell of hand-dipped chocolates, divinity. All of those are part of my Christmas memories. However, there was one year that I almost lost those memories. December 14th, 1972, I was almost 10 years old. I was standing in the snow wearing my best go-to-meeting shoes, my pants that were a little bit too short, a white shirt, a tie, and a winter coat, mittens, and a hat. My family and I had just driven the long 4 miles from our church house to our little community cemetery. And there, we were huddled together with friends and family, somewhat to stay warm, but mostly to bear support, as we gazed upon a baby blue velvet coffin in front of us. The sun was bright and shiny that day, and the sky matched the color of Richard's casket. But I felt cold, gray, and distant inside. What a tragic event that had collided with one of the most wonderful times of the year. The Christmas spirit seemed being sucked right out of me and my family. To you who have lost the spirit of Christmas, or are feeling disappointed, discouraged, or depressed this holiday season, please know that hope can be found in Christmas. In order to find it, you must be willing to believe and then to give it away. that Christmas, when Richard died back in 1972, something changed completely for me. There was a feeling of sadness, that attitude of, I don't care about Christmas, in the air. The smell of those hand-dipped chocolates and divinity and fresh cinnamon rolls, they were replaced that year by the smell of macaroni and cheese and tuna fish casseroles that were delivered by loving friends and family. Fortunately, in that time of despair, as is often the case, a great learning came from that tragedy. And to me, this great blessing, I have to say, came from my parents. For I learned two significant things that year. First, that hope is the seed of belief in Christmas. And second, to feel the spirit of Christmas, you must give it away. That first item, hope is a seed of belief, it's different than what we often think of hope in Christmas. That I form of hope. I hope I get something. I hope I get an iPad. I hope I get that snowblower. It's a different type of hope. It's that thing that adds magic to Christmas. When the hope comes for someone else. The week following Richard's death, my mom came into the kitchen just before breakfast and announced that we weren't going to let this tragedy change our tradition of going to the long-term care unit and sing Christmas carols, give gifts, and present the story from the Bible of the Nativity. Well, I can tell you that none of us felt like doing it. Being a 10-year-old, and I'm sure my brother, who was a teenager, he had no desire to go sit with old people. In fact, my brother wrote later that they were old, they were wrinkly, and they smelled funny. And if you aren't careful, they'll talk your ear off. Well, we had gone year after year. This year, my younger sister, Carolyn, was to be Mary, and I was to be Joseph, and her baby doll was to be the baby Jesus. As we walked into the long-term care unit that night, there was a commotion from one of the rooms. "I don't want to go!" An ornery old man said, as he was wheeled out of his room. He was confined to a wheelchair that had a humongous plate on the front of it. They wheeled him to the back room, and in his frustration, he just glared and hung his head. After we sang our songs and my dad read the Christmas story, it was our turn to hand out our gifts. They were handcrafted gifts, and this year they were pom-pom stuffed animals. Things that we put together kept us busy that week before. Robert, my older brother, he was the one that got the task to go to Mr. Ornery Pants in the back, wanting to support him and actually to see what was going to happen. I followed him back, where he took a yellow duckling that he had made from pom-poms and kind of tossed it on his plate and said, "Here you go, mister. Merry Christmas," in that way that only a reluctant teenager could. We were just about ready to turn and run. You know that sense, right? If I touch them, I might become them, or something will make me become wrinkly. But there was just this slight hesitant an almost audible whisper, "Thank you." We turned around, and as our eyes met his, we noticed that there were tears running down his face. And he said, "I have a grandson about your age. I wish I could see him. I haven't seen him in years." To which my brother kind of, not quite so snootily, said, "Well, I guess he lives a long ways away, right?" "No, he's only 30 miles away." I remember walking away from him and feeling for him in such a way that I had never felt before. I had so hoped that somehow his grandson would come to visit him. That night, as we gathered around our kitchen table to have family prayer, my mom expressed her appreciation for us going. Then my dad announced that he told us that there was a family that he knew, that their father had been out of work for a couple of months, and they weren't going to be experiencing a Christmas like they could. And he then asked if we'd be willing to sacrifice our Christmas for him. I didn't very much feel like Christmas that year, and so I didn't care. But the family all kind of nodded their heads. The next morning, I awoke to the smell of cinnamon rolls baking in the kitchen. After a trip to the grocery store and then to a department store to pick up gifts for that family, we came home and melted chocolate and made divinity. There was a sense of excitement. That magic that had been missing in our home seemed to come back. That night, as we all piled in our old gray Plymouth station wagon, we held our breaths. And that wasn't just to keep the windows from fogging up. As my dad delivered those packages and groceries to the doorstep of that family, he kept it a secret who they were, except maybe Mom. None of us kids knew. He parked around the corner, so we didn't know which house he was going to. But our hearts jumped almost out of us as he rounded the corner and almost slipped and did a header into the snowdrifts. And then he got in the car. And no one spoke. But yet, I knew what everyone was thinking. As we took our coats off in the kitchen that night, and we sat down and started talking about what was going on, there was a new spirit in our home. It was something that had been lost because of the loss of my brother. I can tell you that I can't remember exactly what my little sister said. But in a couple of journals, one including my brother's, he records that during that excitement, my 3-year-old sister said, "It's so nice to have Richard with us for Christmas." I didn't see him. I know what I felt. And I know what I experienced. And I am so grateful that something that happened in a little stable so long ago has affected me so much in my life. To this, I understand, is the meaning behind Christmas. And that meaning of giving hope, of sharing Christmas with others, is what it's all about. Thank you very much.